in the heart of the high desert, oer the wind carve the stories into the sand and the nights betekalderd en stil, rintje na met Coul Parker out het zien it all. It buried friends, lost cattle to kaartjes, and to watch drought strip the land to its bones. Out here, you learn not to expect mercy, not from nature, not from life. But one morning, just as the sun cricket the horizon, he heard something he couldn't explain, three small, broken cries echoing from the corner beyond which his fence line. They were soft at first, carried by the wind, then sharper, desperate. Coul almost ignored the aram. In the desert, cries usually meant death, not life. But something, maybe instinct, maybe fate, made him settle with his horse and follow the sound. What he found buried in the dust that morning would test every bit of strength, patience, and compassion he had left. 3 lives that shouldn't have survived there. 3 tiny, shivering miracles that would change everything he believed about hope, loss, and to what it truly means to save a life. The Mojave Desert at dawn is a strongy, living thing. The wind hums across the dunes, carrying the scent of sage and dust. The sunlight doesn't rise, it spills, gold bleeding into the horizon like slave. For most, this land feels empty. But to Coul Parker, a rancher who worked this acres his whole life, it was home. Every sunrise began the same. Coffee on the porch, boots on cricket boards, a slashan of the horizon. It was a ritual, one that reminded him that even in silence, life moved out here. But that morning felt different. The wind was colder, sharper, and somewhere beneath its whisper, something else called out, faint, uneven, almost swallowed by the desert air. At first, he thought it was the echo of Curtis. Then it came again. A sound so small and fragile that it stopped him mid-step, a whimper. Not a coyote, not a bird. Something younger, something helpless. Coul frowned. He grabbed his head, whistled for his horse, and followed the sound across the fence line. The wind picked up grains of sand that danced like ghosts across the ground. He rode slow, scanning the brush. The sound came again, 3 short cries. Weak, desperate. He dismounted, boots sinking into soft sand, and knelt beside a patch of tumbleweed tangled in GRY grass. Beneath it, he saw movement, a flicker of light fire, a trembling shape. Then another, and another. 3 tiny poppies. They shouldn't have been more than a few days old, eyes barely open, ribs showing through thin skin. Their fur was crusted with dirt, and one of the aram shivered so hard it barely breathed. Beside the aram, half-buried by sand, lay their mother, a sandwichal shepherd myth, motionless. Coul didn't have to look long to know she was gone. He knelt quietly, head in hand. The desert was no stranger to death. But this felt cruel, 3 small sparks of life clinging to a body already cold. Damn, he whispered. He told the eternal truth. Every instinct told him to. Out here, you didn't meddle with nature. You let it run its course. But something about those little cries burrowed deep into him, maybe the way they reached for warmth that wasn't there, or the way their mother's body shielded them from the wind even in death. He sighed, pulled off his jacket, and gently scooped them up. Their tiny bodies fit easily in his palms, fragile as birds. One whimpered weakly, pressing its nose into his thumb. Another just went still, too tired even to see ROI. Coul tucked the aram inside his jacket and turned back toward the ranch. As he rode, the wind howled harder. I carried the smell of rain, though none ever came. He kept a hand against his chest, feeling their faint heartbeats against his skin. Each beat felt like a question, can we make a tea? When he reached the barn, He laid terem on a pile of old rugs near the woodstuff. They were cold, too cold. He grabbed a towel, rubbed terem gently, trying to stir warmth into their tiny bodies. To start it to move, mulling faintly. The earth stayed still. Come on, little one, he murmured, rubbing harder. You made it this far. Don't quit now, Tojak. Minutes passed. Can, finally, a sound, a weak whinny. Coul exhaled, almost laughing from relief. He poured milk into a small bowl, sucked an old rug in tea, and led the pups socarol. They drank greedily, one paw pressed against each's finger like it was their mother. For hours, he sat there, feeding, warming, and whispering, forgetting everything else. The sun climbed high, casting pale light through the barn's lattice. When the smallest pup finally drifted to sleep, Coul leaned back against the wall, exhausted but at peace. He didn't name Terem, not yet. He told himself it handed Terem over to animal control once they were strong enough. But deep down, he already knew that was a lie. As dusk fell, he carried Terem inside. The wire cricket softly, painting the room in amber light. The pups huddled together in a small crate beside each other's chair, their tiny breaths sinking with the arithmetic of the flames. Coul stared into the fire for a long time. He hadn't realized how empty the ranch had felt until now. Vichaya's wife, Clara, had passed years earlier. The kids had grown, moved to the city, chasing leaves far from this lonely desert. For a long time, it had just been him and the silence. But that night, the silence was broken, replaced by soft whimpers, small kicks, the sound of life daring to continue. He smiled faintly. All right, he said. Guess you figure this out together, Toch. Outside, the desert wind carried on, steady and endless. But inside that small ranch house, something shifted. For the first time in years, Coul Parker wasn't alone. And though he didn't know it yet, the 3 fragile leaves it rescued would soon lead him down a path of sacrifice, heartbreak, and redemption, one that would test not just each's will, but each's understanding of what it means to save something wild. The first few nights were the hardest. The desert doesn't forgive weakness, not from men, not from beasts. When the sun set, the temperature dropped so fast that the air itself seemed to tighten. The ranch creaked in the cold, the fire burned low, and the only sound in Chola's home was the tiny whimpering from the bugs beside Igea's chair. He hadn't planned for this. He was a rancher, not a caretaker. Igea's life was built around cattle, fences, and long hours of silence, not battles, blankets, and crying mouths that woke him every 2 hours. But every time he heard those small, broken sounds, something in him stirred, a quiet memory of holding EGS on children when they were young, when the nights were long but the world still felt full of meaning. He made Terem a little bed inside a crate, lined with old shirts and rugs, placed near the stove for warmth. The smallest pup, the one that almost didn't make a tea, he started calling Tiny. The other 2, Dusty and Scout, were stronger, more vocal. Tiny was always quiet, always cold. Coul spent extra time rubbing life into him, whispering things he didn't even realize he still remembered how to say. Come on, little feller. You're at after 10, you look to it. It became routine. Every morning, Coul made to our milk and fed Terem drop by drop. He learned how to wipe their tiny faces, how to rub their bellies to help Terem breathe and digest. Every night, it checked their backs, covered Terem with a rug, and sit by the fire till his eyes closed. Sleep came in short bursts. Sometimes, he woke to the sound of coyotes howling beyond the fence line. The desert was full of eyes, always watching. Coul would grab his lantern, step outside, and shun the fields until the silence returned. He hasn't pretending just the kettle anymore. Now, he hit something smaller, something that sold wide back. They spaced into weeks. The pops grew stronger. Their ace-painted, cloudy blue at first, 10 sharper couriers. They began to stumble across the floor, tumbling over one another like children learning how to walk. Cole lived for the first time in months. VT felt strong in his throat, like a sound that he'd forgotten how to use. By the second month, their personalities had begun to shine. Scoured, the biggest, was brave, always the first to explore. Dusty was playful and loud, always beating at Cholo's boots when he walked. And Tiny was different. Quiet, watchful. He followed Cole everywhere, never straying more than a few feet away, as if afraid the word might disappear if he blinked. Cole talked to Terum like old friends. He'd sit on the porch, sip BCS coffee, and tell Terum about the ranch, about the drought years, about Clara, about the old days when laughter filled the rooms instead of echoes. Hateless ten, he'd still teeth, tail stamping in the dust. Sometimes he forgot they told answer. One afternoon, a storm rolled in from the west, black clouds, heavy wind. The air turned electric, charged with dust and thunder. Cole ran to the barn to check on the kettle. When he came back, the wind had blown the back door open. The puppies were gone. Panic hit him harder than he expected. He grabbed the witch's coat and flashlight, stepping into the downpour. Rain sliced through the air, stinging Icha's face. The sound of thunder drowned everything. Scoured. Dusty. Tiny. He shouted. No answer. Just the hiss of rain and the crack of lightning. He ran toward the fence line, Vichaya's boots sinking into mud. Vichaya's flashlight beam cut through the dark, hung out something, a small paw print near the edge of the Jaroi Creek. Following it, he saw movement. Two little shapes huddled under a fallen barrel. Scoured and Dusty. Sucked, trembling, crying. He scooped the arm up, tucking the arm under his coat. But Tiny wasn't there. Cholo's chest tightened. He scanned the ground, calling Ichaya's name again and again. The creek bed had started to float, water rushing west between the rocks. Then, in a flash of lightning, he saw him, Tiny, standing on a small rise of dirt, water swirling around him. Hold on. Cole shouted, ordering through a knee deep water. Tiny whined, tripped, frozen in place. A sudden surge of water hit the mound, and the pup slipped, tumbling toward the current. Cole lunged there, arm outstretched, and caught him by the scruff just before the water swallowed him. He pulled the pup close, heart hammering. Gotcha, body. I gotcha to. By the time they reached the house, all four of the arm were sucked and shivering. Cole wrapped the arm in blankets near the fire, one by one, until the tremor stopped. He sat down, exhausted, with Tiny sleeping against his chest, small, fragile, but alive. The storm raged on outside, but inside the cabin, the only sound was breathing, soft, slow, steady. Cole looked down at the sleeping pup and whispered, "You're a fighter, ain't you?" Tiny stared, pressing closer. That night, something changed there. The bond between the between man and animal, grew a roots that went deeper than Cole could explain. They weren't just our reference anymore. They were family. Weeks turned into months. The puppies grew fast, turning into strong, loyal dogs. They followed Cole everywhere, to the barn, the fields, even on long rides across the range. Scout was bold and always ran ahead. Dusty chased anything that moved, and Tiny, though still the smallest, never left Cholo's side. He had become Cholo's shadow. At dusk, they two walked the ranch together, the desert glowing orange in the dying light. The same land that once felt endless and empty now pulsed with life again, laughter, barking, uarmed. Sometimes, Coul caught himself smiling for no reason. For years, he had believed the desert had taken everything from him. But now, he realized maybe it had been waiting to give something back. Something small, something wild, something that reminded him that even the harshest places still have room for miracles. But miracles don't come without a price. And soon, Coul would learn that love, no matter how poor, always carries the weight of letting go. Time moves differently in the desert. Days stretch like the horizon, long and golden, but the years vanish like wind-blown dust. By the time spring rolled round, Coul Parker's ranch isn't the same quiet, lonely place it used to be. The fences still creaked, the wind still sang through the grass, but now, laughter echoed across the fields, 3 dogs chasing one another beneath the endless blue sky. Scout grew tall and bold, which is caught shining like copper in the sun. Dusty was loud, wild, and fearless, always the first to bark at strangers and the last to come inside. But Tiny, the smallest, had grown into something else entirely. Calm, steady, always near Chola's hill, always watching. Coul didn't say it out loud, but Tiny isn't just a dog anymore. He was family, the quiet heart of the home. That summer was the hardest one yet. The drought returned. The creeks dried up, the grass turned brittle, and every day the heat came down heavier. Water became scarce. Coyotes, desperate and starving, started moving closer to the ranch. Coul kept the dogs close. They were HIS ace, BHIS warning system, BHIS company through the silence of the long, sumbaked days. One evening, it happened. He was checking the far fence line when he heard barking, frantic, sharp. Scoured. Dusty. The barks turned into growls. 10 yelps. Coul ran toward the noise, heart pounding. Dust rose behind HIS boots as he crested the ridge and saw Teram to Curtis circling near the cattle pen, and Tiny standing between Teram and a cave, teeth bared, tail la, growling like a lion trapped in a small body. Tiny. Coul showered it. The Curtis lunged there. Tiny met Teram Iadon, snapping and twisting, holding Teram off long enough for Coul to fire a warning shot into the air. The coyotes scattered into the desert shadows. But when Coul reached Tiny, HIS heart stopped. The little dog was on HIS side, panting hard, a deep wound along HIS flank. Blood sucked into the dust beneath him. Hink on, body, Coul whispered, kneeling. You did good. You did real good, toy. He carried him all the way back to the ranch, hands trembling. Scout and Dusty followed close behind, whining softly. Coul cleaned the wound, ripped it tight, and stayed awake through the night, whispering to him like he had when he was just a pup. Stay with me, Tiny. You've made it through a worse story. The night dragged on. The wind pressed against the windows. Every few minutes, Tina's breathing hitched, then steadied again. Coul sat by the fire, praying silently to a god he hadn't spoken to in years. When the first light of dawn touched the hills, Tiny lifted HIS head, looked at Coul, and gave one last slow yank of HIS tail, as if to say thank you. Then the light faded from HIS eyes. Coul didn't move for a long time. Outside, the desert was waking, birds calling, sun rising, but inside, everything was still. When he finally stood, he carried Tiny out to the back pasture, beneath the lone mesquite tree where the land sloped gently toward the horizon. He buried him there, under the same sky he had walked together so many times. Scout and Dusty lay quietly beside the grave until sunset. Coul sat with Teram, head in HIS hands, eyes lost in the golden light. Goodbye, Little feller, he whispered. You were the best damn thing this dessert ever gave me touch. Weeks passed. The wound of loss didn't fade, but something else grew in its place, peace. Every morning, when Cole stepped outside with his coffee, scoured and dusty ran through the grass like nothing had changed there. And sometimes, when the wind shifted just right, he swore he could hear a faint bark echoing across the open fields, sharp, small, brave. Maybe IT was just memory. Maybe IT was something more. Either way, he smiled, because Tiny hadn't really gone. He was still there, in the space between the wind and the silence, in every sunrise that painted the ranch gold again. Cole had saved 3 leaves that shouldn't have survived there. But in truth, they had saved him first.